toes and really engaged with what's going on in the threat landscape and modern controls. So this presentation is something kind of near and dear to my heart. So the title is Cybersecurity Team Development and Retention, but really what makes it important to me, and I think to all of us, is if you're in a leadership capacity, it's really important to care about the career and professional development of your direct reports. And then when we speak about retention, uh, if we make the work life of our employees as best we can, it is work, right? Then we can retain them, and hopefully their work life is something that they enjoy. We spend a lot of time at work. So I'm going to go through performance and development plans, which are something oftentimes that our organizations push upon us, and sometimes whoever our supervisor is don't take them that seriously. But what I found when I was an employee and a manager and an exec was the way I drove my career forward was really focusing on my performance plan. What am I going to execute on this year? And then my development plan, how can I get better and prove myself ready now for the next role? So learning that as an individual contributor, I got a little better as a manager, a little better as an exec. So we're going to talk about how to create good, solid performance and development plans. So if we have individual contributors on the call, and you struggle with that a little bit and you really have career goals, but it's taking you longer than you'd like to get there, this can help. Also, there's a bit of a flavor to this presentation of almost like an orientation for a new manager in the calendar year. So we will go through a little bit. If you're a leader and you're trying to coach your direct reports on performance and development plans, there's going to be a bit of that. As we go through the calendar year, even though there's a lot of management focus here, I know there's quite a few of you that are individual contributors that want to prove yourself ready now, and you want to go from individual contributor to manager. So there's going to be perhaps some routines you're not familiar with, and that will help you along in your goals. So we will talk about communications routines, which are really important to be successful in driving change. We'll talk about financial acumen, which is absolutely critical as a leader, and also to get the best results as you drive change and continue to evolve your team and your program. We'll talk about the talent review meeting that happens every year. I think many of you are not exposed to this. So, performance calibration as an example, and how the decisions are made, who gets the highest rating amongst the different teams in your area. And then program architecture. So if we have sub-programs like vulnerability management or identity and access management, not just the whole cybersecurity program, but sub-programs within that, what's the architecture? What framework should you use as an individual contributor, as a leader? I am speaking to cybersecurity professionals as an audience. I love speaking with ISACA chapters and the conversation that follows at the end of the call. I do also present at ISACA conferences and have been a member for, I think it's 20 plus years. If you can't tell, I speak at a fast pace, and what I'm doing is using Air Force crash course format. So I'm going to present information to you about twice as fast as other speakers, which I think on the whole is going to be good for you. I think it'll keep your attention and you'll get more value. One thing you may get a little frustrated with is I might have a slide up that's very detailed and it's gone, right? And maybe you've read through half of it and it's gone. And sometimes that can be frustrating to people. As Kevin mentioned at the beginning of the call, I'm happy to give out a copy of this deck to you. What I would ask is either shoot me an email or shoot me a LinkedIn message, and I will respond with a PDF of the deck. You won't get a pen pal. I'm not going to solicit you. I do like to know when I send these decks out who I sent it to. And also, I don't like them posted somewhere because they get stale quickly. For example, I refreshed this deck before presenting today. Kevin was right. Let's please hold questions till the end. I'm going to try to leave about 10 or 15 minutes. So if you have a question and you put it in the Zoom chat feature, whoever's there first will be the first question that I respond to. So let's get started. So for security managers, for security leaders, and this can also be true within internal audit. Typically, we don't build teams from scratch. I've done that a couple of times, but by and large, we transition into a new team. And I think it's really important if the other leader is still around, right? Sometimes they give 2 weeks notice and they're gone. But if the leader is still available, still in the company, perhaps, I think it's great not only to have that transition meeting to try to understand the program and what projects are going on, but also just to ask them, hey, can you give me 2 or 3 minutes and kind of go round robin and talk about each employee, their strengths, areas of professional development, that type of thing, and get his or her opinion and thoughts and experience with each of the employees. From there, I think it's great to go into the HR web application and look at each employee's last year's performance and development plans and ratings and the comments within. And then, very important, within a week of taking over a team, I think it's really a great best practice to have one-on-ones alone with each of your new reports. And I always talk about, like, look at the other side of the table. Think about when you have had a new supervisor get rotated in. It's stressful, right? So before that happened, you're stable with your team. You know your last leader and your last supervisor, and everything's pretty good. And now there's uncertainty. So I think it's really good to have just an open one-on-one, at least for a half hour with each report, and help them with that stress and start to get to know each other. Just a really good approach. So early on, I think it's important for each of your new employees to get a current state of their professional development, right? So these are people, right? They're referred to as human resources. These are people, and people I think quickly we grow to care about, right? So do we have a recent college grad, somebody that's maybe been in the career field for a year, or a midterm individual contributor, 3 to 5 years, senior individual contributor? So who is sitting across us from the other side of the table? What's their background and experience, and what motivates them? So there's always this statement, we need to treat all employees the same. And I think we need to treat them fairly and equally, all of those things. And I believe that very deeply. But people are different and they have different motivations. And I think that's important to know. So, for example, usually a smaller percentage of a team is really hard charging and career oriented. And you can see it when you first sit down with them, and they really, really, really want to demonstrate that they're ready to be promoted, and that they want to prove themselves ready now for promotion. So that's going to be different than if you have someone that's technology focused, right? And I've led quite a few of these people where these are brilliant professionals, right? They know more about technology than some of us, myself included, on the phone may ever know in a certain space, right? Say quants or penetration testers, right? But they want to stay in that lane, right? Whatever technology focus they have, they don't want to be subjected to being promoted to leaders, some of these people. So it's important to know you don't want to be trying to push somebody into leadership that doesn't want to go and really wants to get better and better and provide more and more value from a technology perspective. Uh, you need to be careful into getting into people's personal lives, but I always try to understand who's that person across the side of the table. And there's a fair amount of people modern day that are family oriented. They want a work life balance. Many people have young kids. I've been there. Many people have aging parents. I'm kind of there now, right? So sometimes you need a little bit of flexibility to deal with that as an employee. And then also, there's been times where I've taken over teams and you've got an employee that's 1 or 2 years from retirement. So they're not necessarily chasing career and professional development. They want to provide, good hard work. They have work ethic and they have quality to what they do, but they're not looking past the next year or two. So it's important to understand who your new reports are. From here, and I think I mentioned this a little bit, I want to transition into a calendar year for a manager. And again, if you're an individual contributor on this call, there's a lot of value to you. One, if one day you want to pursue leadership and you want to be promoted, but also there's going to be some things that are going on behind the scenes that you should know about. So at the beginning of any given year when I've been a leader and not in a consulting position, what I'll do is I'll sit down the first week of January and I'll say, hey, it's a new year. We're starting fresh. Last year is, almost in a way gone and forgotten from a business perspective, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, whatever we did last year is gone. I always think of a phoenix rising from the ashes, right? We're starting now. And I always get kind of excited, like a nervous excitement at the beginning of the year, because it's opportunity, right? So there's just so much ahead of us that we can do. So hopefully some of that comes across genuinely when you have those conversations. Um, I like to talk about one-on-one with each person. What are their career goals? So if it's a newer to me employee, that's more of a meaningful conversation. It might just be a reset. Last year you said X. Are we still on that same path? Is that still what you want to do? And I will always, to kind of do that refresh at the beginning of the year, say you have one of three options. And sometimes people will kind of chuckle when I say it because they know you as an employee, you're going down one of these paths this year. So you can say, I want to stay in my current role, and great, we'll chart you a path to be the best you can be in your current role and that skill set. You can say, I want to move laterally to another team. So I want to move to the red team, for example. Okay, let's chart a path for that. I want to pursue leadership. And I always say no promises to be fair to that employee, right? It's challenging. Some of you are in the process or having been there. It's challenging to become a manager. It's challenging to become an exec. So when I say no promises, for example, an individual contributor, typically, if someone says, I want to be a manager, if they're lucky, it's 2 or 3 years from now. And the reason for that is the foundational performance for that is you have to be really, really, really good at your current job and maintain that performance. But you also have to demonstrate leadership. And I get it. It's challenging to demonstrate leadership in an individual contributor role. For me, some of that has been focusing on projects. So an individual contributor can year over year deliver on projects that provide value and are challenging and demonstrate leadership. So that's a big takeaway for those of you on the call looking to prove themselves ready now for promotion. I always try, so like it's not just at the beginning of the year, every 2 weeks or so with each employee, I try to meet in a casual setting. So I get it. Since COVID, a lot of us are working remote, or maybe one of you during that one-on-one meeting is remote. I get it. But if you are in an office environment, I've always said to people, look, we can meet in my office, we can meet in a conference room, or your option, we can go for a walk, right? If they don't need to display something, we can go for a walk, we can go to a coffee shop, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. So think about work life and retention, um, these small things have an aggregate effect of having a good impact on somebody's work life. So some people really love to go for a walk or sit down and have a coffee. Uh, so I've taken over teams and I get in and the employees will say to me, oh, we can't do anything in January or really in February because it takes a couple of years for the strategic goals to come down from executives. I completely don't care, and nor should you. By the time January comes, regardless of when the new performance and development plan is due, January 2nd, we should all be executing on what will be our performance and development plans. The reason I don't like to wait for strategic goals is typically as they come down, they say things like be more efficient, right? So generally, they're high level, business focused goals that we either have very little impact on us in cybersecurity, privacy, internal audit, or they're things we can adapt to. So I'd rather make use of those 2 months. And so the, when I said that individual contributors are going to be some things that you may not be aware of, this will be one of them. So when you go into your performance plan, into your HR web application, it may say something like, your performance plan starts January 1st and it ends December 31st. I'm telling you as a statement of fact, it does not end in December 31st. What happens is something like October, the executives will get together with the managers and they will go through performance calibration, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail later, but it's a meeting, and they will determine October timeframe who is who are the highest performing employees of the company, and the other ratings too. So does not meet, meets, exceeds. So that's the time frame you have. And if you're waiting to start executing on your goals, say in March, and you run into October, that's not much time, right? So let's make use of all of January and February, and then remember that October is probably where they snap that chalk line. So let's talk a little bit about performance plans and get in a little deeper. I'm going to have some examples too. So one for me, performance plans are plans of execution. What are you going to do? What actions are you going to take? What are you going to deliver? Sometimes I've taken over teams and a lot of what they were doing is writing performance plans that were basically their jobs. So in most organizations, and I think this is healthy, our performance plans are not keeping the lights on. It's what are we doing beyond that, from an improvement perspective. So I've got a couple of examples here that are more business focused. So create or significantly improve a process, increase efficiency to expand scope or reduce cost. And this third example is a little bit more in our lane, right? So establish new capabilities to identify or mitigate risk. So this could be in cybersecurity, privacy, internal audit. Another thing too, sometimes I've had people that will bring goals to me and it's just not clear to me what the value is. So that the advice that I give people is answer the so what question, which sounds kind of harsh. Some of the execs I used to work with would say, answer the so what question. So what kind of value is this providing? What kind of change are we driving here? So what? So it's a little harsh, but I think it's a good measure. I'm also a huge fan of management by results. So when I did used to work into an office, it, it was about 10 years. I had been living in a suburb and the traffic was getting heavier and heavier. And one day, I came in and I was about 5 minutes late, and I had a manager go to me, "Why are you 5 minutes late?" And I was pretty frustrated because it's just kind of a silly question, right? So that's not really the way that we should be looking at the performance of our employees. It's more about, are they performing really well in their core duties, and are they hitting their performance plan, and their development goals? If they're doing all of those things, great. And if somebody's 5 minutes late, we certainly work late. So that I think we need to be careful about that. Those optics and perception based performance monitoring.